Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon as well. We have an eminent speaker and a physician from Medanta, Dr. Sushila Kataria, for this series on CDSS on behalf of Voice of Healthcare in association with Wolters Kluwer. Our topic today is how does CDSS benefit patient safety in pulmonary care? I would request Dr. Sushila to please introduce herself and we can dive into the questions.
Hi, good morning and good afternoon to some areas in the world. My name is Dr. Sushila Kataria. I am the Head and Director, Department of Internal Medicine at Medanta, the Medicity.
Hi, Dr. Sushila. Thanks for providing us some of your special time. I know things are now mellowed down a bit. I hope we don't see a bad wave eventually again, as discussed. So my first question is, how does CDSS, which is Clinical Development Decision Support System, support our pulmonologists in their daily lives at the point of care in post-COVID world?
So these clinical decision support systems have been very helpful, especially in the COVID era and the post-COVID eras, because one is the information is changing too fast, and it is very difficult for an individual person to keep pace with the so much of changing information. Secondly, there is an explosive information also. There's too much of information, so it is difficult to figure out what to use and what not to use. So I believe that this CDSS systems, whether they're knowledge based or AI based in whatever platform, standalone or integrated with the hospital HIS systems, they're of a great help because it keeps you updated with what's happening latest, what helps the patients best, and also it cuts down the unnecessary jargon. So it gives you an insight into the best possible treatment, obviously, and then which translates into patient safety, better outcomes. It can also guide you individual investigations also, so that you don't end up ordering A to Z, and you don't miss out on the information which is important and the investigations which are crucial in making diagnosis or treatment.
Absolutely. So rightly said. Actually, some of these, up to date, basically I use often, and I get, they keep updating their information as the name says, and I'm able to get very good evidence, like, to support my decision making, especially during the COVID times. It really helped me to, figure out those, as you said, from the jargon, which are the important studies which we should, look at to take decision.
Completely, and especially those, the section which I like is we recommend. I mean, that puts it simplified.
Simplified, yeah. So next question. Does CDSS role assist in patient management through patient education in accordance with the treatment protocol?
I agree with this completely because when we are treating a patient, it's not a one-way dialogue. For a two-way dialogue, it is important to empower the patient, and empowering is through education only. So to give an education at a level where they understand, to it should not be very scientific so that they get lost into the words, and it should give the basic what is required. So all these platforms, especially the one which you and me use, is very helpful, and it categorizes based depending upon the patient's intellect also. So it's
Yes, yes.
has to make a informed decision that I give them an option that this is for option 1 for you, this is option 2 for you. If they are informed, they know what option they're choosing and why they are choosing. So patient education by and large is the, I would say, it's one third of the work done if you are able to educate the patient very well. And well
Yes.
educated patients take a very informed decision, then they're more likely to adhere to their treatment, and there is a less breakage of rapport between the treating team and the patient. So it translates into a better rapport and better adherence to the therapy, obviously better outcome, win-win situation for all of us. And there is a dearth of simplified patient education material in general. When we are educated in medical schools, we are educated in what we should do. a very less emphasis is given on patient education at that time.
Yes, absolutely. So rightly said, I feel. And, looking into some of the developing country scenario, we have this very young, working class who's very well educated, who probably end up googling things, and it just makes our life so difficult because the Google shows the best, the simplest and the worst scenario, and then explaining these families, these patients, what exactly goes in is kind of challenging. And as you said, these platforms, CDSS platforms, really make our job easy. A lot of doctor hopping and shopping as well in India. So I think, again, as you said, to develop that rapport, it really helps us with the patients. Eventually, I hope it comes in local languages as well, because for now I have only been able to use in English. I hope once it comes to local language, it will make our lives more easier. But then, of course, every hospital can have these people who translate and then print some material and share it with the people. But totally agree with you.
I think a smaller video version of these things with some animations and depictions that can also be developed by, I mean, some people must be working on that. That also
Yes.
becomes very easier because, as you say, a picture speaks more than 1,000 words.
Words. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So the next question is, what role does drug interaction serve in pulmonary medicine?
So drug interaction or drug food interaction, you and me both are clinicians. We know that, as much as 1% of the hospital admissions could be related to drug interactions. And if we scan through the discharge summaries or outpatient prescriptions, we would find a lot of drug interactions. Many of them may not be clinically significant, but there are always clinically significant interactions. And especially when we look into the respiratory care, there are interactions between the inhaled substances, be it LABA, LAMA, or corticosteroids. We are looking for more synergistic action in some situations. Then there is an interaction between other drugs because a patient may not have standalone respiratory disease. They may have a lot of cardiac issues, diabetes, dyslipidemias. So there would be interaction between the cardiac drugs and the pulmonary drugs, like a beta blocker, very commonly used drugs in heart failures, in hypertension, in coronary artery disease, and these patients may have some respiratory component. So we can advise on cardioselective beta blockers instead of a non-selective beta blockers by using these knowledge from these platforms. Secondly, then you have, tuberculosis is such a common thing in India, and most of the respiratory practice goes to tuberculosis. And nobody can practice tuberculosis or treat tuberculosis without rifampicin. And rifampicin creates so much of up regulation of the system through cytokine P450. So there are about 50% of the drugs whose levels will diminish by 25% or more by using rifampicin. So we have to be very, very aware of that. Otherwise, there are a lot of antibiotics. Sometimes there could be two components, which one is not aware and causing a QT prolongation. So whenever my practice is that if I'm using more than 4 drugs in a patient, I always check drug interactions, because it is totally superhuman to expect everybody to know all the interactions. And obviously, we should be aware of the significant ones.
Totally agree. So as you said, that's the first thing that comes to my head in India, practicing in even pediatric TB. So pulmonary TB and rifampicin. These are the things which, and of course, in children we don't use that much drugs along with it because they probably come with just one issue. But we've had cases where they had SCID and they had disseminated BCG-losis. So then we had to use this medicine, and with their BMT in process, it was a huge challenge. And platforms which has CDSS really help bring down those interactions and help. And as you said, we are not superhumans; we are still humans, and it's too much to remember. So these are really good platforms which help physicians across the world. So my next question is, what role does CDSS play in inpatient and outpatient settings? Some of your experiences.
So in the outpatient settings, I use the simpler versions to remind patients to come for their follow-ups. that the follow-up is due. Then we send some alerts for their investigation, especially the diabetic patients. Some patients we integrate their glucose monitoring, and if their glucose is continuously coming higher, then it triggers them to either speak to the doctor through teleconsultation or come in person or look at their diet or take a feedback from the dietitian. That's what we do in our diabetes care. Similarly, in hypertension care, I was once using this tele alerts for my immune deficiency patients to remind them of their dosing every time and give a small, bullets of patient education material for them. Sometimes, grabbing too much of information at the same time is difficult. So we would send small fillers from time to time. In IPD, yes, we use it for diagnostics. Sometimes there are diagnostic challenges. We use a lot in our research so that we put the protocol and, it knows the patient visits and the investigations and then analyzing. We also, use it as a reference always for treatment, something we are stuck. Drug-drug interactions is another area where we have been using it extensively. I just hope that that these platforms becomes more integrated part of HIS, more simpler and more widely available, so that it is really my dream to see in country like India to have a uniform treatment from a primary care to the tertiary care level. It doesn't matter a patient of hypertension being treated in a PHC or at Medanta. I mean, they should have same quality of care always. And it is sometimes a matter of just effort. It's not too much of money or not too much of intelligence is required. It's just a matter of effort and putting everything digitalization. The Indian challenges are a lot more because a lot of our healthcare is fragmented into private sector, and that there is a lot of vast difference in the quality of care being provided. Digitalization of medical records is almost lacking, and you can't have a better AI system working without too much information being fed to it. Then training of people is also important.
I totally echo and agree with you. So where I have used this in my inpatient and in where I was training in US was even in antibiotic stewardship. So as an ID physician, I'm very close to this fact, and more so in India where there's a lot of drug resistance we are seeing in our gram negative. Sometimes even in neonates we are seeing Klebsiellas which are not susceptible to anything. Like, it's just so shocking for me. So there, if we are prescribing a medication which falls into that restricted antibiotics, there would be alarms. There would be, the system will not allow you to till you get, acceptance from the stewardship team. So I hope that also comes in, because that will add to this problem of drug resistance in India. So yes,
Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
we are also using, I forgot to mention, we use this. So if there is a restricted drug being used, then there is a form pops up, and then the treating team fills that form, and that goes to a scrutinizing committee through the ID physician and some physicians, which have to authenticate yes it can be used, and then there is a review alert which comes after 72 hours or whenever the cultures are flagged. But there are always bypasses. I am sorry to say that.
A lot of bypasses, but at least it makes us aware that yes, we have to think twice before we make that decision, and I hope it eventually
that
will.
will take care 50% of the problem, and rest is our own intentions.
Yes. So how do you get from library to a point of care? Does such tools help at the hospital to achieve patient outcome?
Definitely, such tools, and it is not just accumulating your own knowledge and just read it. This is from bed to bed. You can use it at the bedside easily. These are portable devices available on your phone. On a click of a phone, there is a new medicine comes up, or there is a resident who's new to the ward and comes. Amphotericin is being going on in a patient of mucormycosis, so they can immediately check what all has to be ordered, what all parameters they have to see. So I am a strong supporter of change and of technology in healthcare system, and I think by continuously improving upon, nobody thought that referring to some knowledge would be so easy. I remember my medical college days when we had to go to the National Library to write our thesis, and you have to make 4 or 5 visits to get the amount of material you needed, and still it was so suboptimal. So right now it is not just that you have knowledge, you can use it right there and then. There's a patient who I feel is, something somewhere I have read this, but it's not coming to my mind. You can immediately refer. And I tell my team also, there is no shame in saying that, let me check, let me find out, rather than making a wrong decision. It's always best to check. And I think the patients appreciate this.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think this trend is definitely changing in India, because when I came in and I used the word, okay, let me just check. It's been a while. I've referred to this, disease process. Some of the physicians didn't appreciate that. But I think, as you said, people are changing. We have so much knowledge at our fingertips, and I hope this trend keeps coming in, because it definitely provides a better patient care. And with the so many people now having access to smartphone, this should be an easy task to go ahead with. So how do we include CDSS as a habit in our day-to-day practice? This would be my final question for you.
So to include it in our habits, first and foremost, it has to be made available. I think, sometimes these platforms have subscription fees, which may not be very easy for each and every practicing student, every practicing physician, and especially the nurses. So I think we should make it more available, maybe the initiative from the platforms or from the government or from the private organizers, whosoever. And this is most of the information, especially in India, which is doctor centric. Why not make it paramedic centric? Why not make it nurses centric? So that is a time when it will be, I am very happy when the nurse on the rounds comes and challenges me or my team leaders that, no, I feel this way. I feel so happy that she may be sometimes wrong and she needs more explanation on that, but she may be right. And she has taken the pain to, check it and take interest in doing it. So we have to make a patient version, a nurse's version, and a doctor's version, and interacting with each other, updating each other, and through a lot of CMEs and discussions like this, I think it can be made. Definitely, people are always hungry for knowledge, and when it gives a good result, it boosts your endorphins. You feel so good.
Yes, I totally agree again with you. I during this COVID time and the concerns of third wave, some of the government people had approached our hospital regarding developing some educational material for ASHA workers. So again, as you said, paramedics, I really like that point from you, that we do need, it should not be just doctor centric, and hopefully the government also needs to look into this, and assign some budget for this improvement in digitalization of healthcare as well. So I hope we get to see more and more of this in future. Thank you so much for joining us this day, and sharing such good points about CDSS. Any concluding remarks, Dr. Sushila, before we wrap it up?
First and foremost, I am so really happy to being interviewed by you. It's a pleasant surprise this morning. Secondly, yes, as I believe that change is only thing constant in life. We should always be pro change, and we'll see things once we have experienced it, we have done it. And then knowledge sharing, it is not a trade secret, something I know and I shouldn't be telling anyone. We should knowledge sharing, digitalization, and be more pro change. At this stage, sometimes when I had to use digital prescriptions, I said, I can't learn this. So, but I said, if I can say this, then a physician who's 20 years senior to me will definitely say this. So there is always a scope of improvement, and that scope comes through these platforms. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I thank everyone who's joined us. Please share your questions if you have any. And on behalf of Voice of Healthcare, I thank you everyone for joining us. Yeah. Bye-bye.